Hey, sorry for interrupting right when the beat was about to drop. We'll get back to that soon. Real quick, the commentary section of this vocabulary video goes into a lot more detail about the background of the words and maybe gives you some information that will help you increase your retention and help you remember the words. So please check it out. Okay, thanks. Hey GRE fans, hopefully that wasn't too bad. So welcome to the new and improved vocabulary commentary section. So what we're going to do here is a little bit different than what we did before. So before it was just me talking, but now we're going to try to give you a little bit of background on maybe not every one of the correct answers, but at least, some of them or most of them. So learning vocabulary for the GRE is hard. It's hard to remember, and you have to remember hundreds, if not thousands of words. So it's kind of a pain in the ass. One trick you can do is try to connect the word to an image or a scene or something that can kind of help you remember the word or draw a picture to your mind whenever you think about it. So I want to start with the word Spartan. And for me, Spartan brings up the memory of the movie 300. Take a look.
This is Sparta!
So that's kind of always the image that I have in my mind when I think of the word Spartan. And, where exactly does this word come from? Why does it mean severe or strict or austere, or in this case, simple, which is the correct answer? Well, where it comes from, believe it or not, is actually ancient Sparta, the Greek city-state. And these people, these warriors, they were known for living very strict and severe lives, very simple lives. They kind of did not engage in any luxury or anything like that because they thought it took away from their ability to engage in warfare and their ability to kind of dominate their enemies. So that's actually where the word Spartan comes from. It kind of refers to this warrior, strict, severe culture. And that's why, in this case, the definition is going to be simple. I mean, what it really means is you basically do not engage in any kind of luxury whatsoever, and you lead a very abstemious and kind of austere life. Okay, so that's Spartan. Let's look at number 2. So number 2 says, I enjoy boisterous venues. So for me, whenever I think of the word boisterous, I like to think of essentially a nightclub, a party. Basically, that thump, 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 thump kind of music. So anytime you hear or see the word boisterous, kind of try to picture that there's a party going on. So what this means is, this person likes boisterous venues. This person likes noisy venues, kind of rowdy and rambunctious and things like that. So the next one, it is a cumbersome process. So my research told me that this word actually comes from Old French, the word combre or something like that, and what it means is a barrier or something that is supposed to slow you down. So if I'm describing this cumbersome process, this is a process that I cannot do that quickly, a process that might take me some time. And of the answers, the best choice is going to be involved. Now remember, on the GRE, what this means is complicated. It doesn't mean like you're getting included or engaged with something. So typically that goes back to our rule. The easier the word looks, the word involved looks pretty easy. That's a pretty basic TOEFL word. Really, the harder the definition, or at least it's going to be the second or the third definition. So the correct answer here is going to be B. It is a complicated or involved process. So for this next one here, the shop was full of sham products. For me, probably the easiest thing to do is just to connect it to an example. So whenever I see the word sham, I immediately think of an example in my head. And I don't know if you guys have Netflix or Hulu, but right now there's a documentary on each one of those streaming services about something called the Fire Festival. And the Fire Festival turned out to be like this big bogus scam where a lot of people lost a lot of money, and it was just this big fake event. So that's a good example to remember the word sham, but of course there's a lot of examples that you can call upon. So the correct answer here is going to be bogus. So for this next one, classism is pervasive in our society. I want you to take a look at these 3 words right here. So permit, permeate, and percolate. And what do they have all in common? Well, it's pretty obvious they share the prefix per. Right there, P-E-R. And what per means is actually like through, like a tunnel. That's how I kind of like to imagine, like a tunnel. Let me get my pen here. So basically the prefix P-E-R equals through. And if you look at these words, permit, if I permit you, it's almost like I'm allowing you through something. Permeate means something is spreading throughout an area. Percolate means you are filtering something through, right? So notice each one of these words shares the word through, and so does pervasive. So if something is pervasive, that means it has spread throughout an area and it has become widespread. So the correct answer is D. The next one for number 6, this is going to sound kind of bad. It's not something I enjoy thinking about, but it does help me remember the meaning of the word rapacious. So think about old armies, like the Roman army, from 2,000 years ago. Whenever they would sack a town or take over a city, they would engage in something called rape and pillage. And the meaning of rape is pretty obvious, but pillage basically means, to either steal or to loot something. And because rapacious is so close to this word rape, it doesn't mean rape, by the way, but because rape is so connected to this word pillage, which means steal and loot, it allows me to choose the answer here, greedy. C is the correct answer. Number 7, the trek will be perilous. Again, you want to connect this to an idea, so go ahead and take a look at this GIF. Or is it GIF? The mystery hasn't been solved yet. GIF or GIF. Anyway, take a look. So it's pretty obvious what perilous means here. It means you're putting yourself in some kind of danger, and that guy was obviously very scared even though he had safety equipment. So the correct answer is going to be dangerous. Let's talk about a trick answer. The trick answer right here is torturous. They almost look similar. They have the same kind of ending sound here, O-U-S. Something that's perilous, maybe you connect it to torture, like when someone uses knives to scare somebody to get information. But remember, on the GRE, torturous doesn't really mean torture. What it means is kind of like a windy road. So this is the trick answer here, and don't be confused by it. All right, so let's look at number 8. The executive often skirts problems. So the first thing that comes to mind might be this right here. But actually, this is not correct because that's the noun. That right there is the skirt that you buy at like a fashion store. So this is not correct. However, this brings up an interesting point. Whenever a word is relatively easy, like the word skirt, we can agree that this is a relatively easy word, at least in terms of its first definition, its article of clothing. Whenever this happens on the GRE, you notice an interesting phenomenon. As the word gets easier, as you go up here, you no longer are dealing with the first definition. You're dealing with the third or fourth definition. And skirt is a very good example of this phenomenon. Let me give you another example. So another good example would be the word compromise. In normal talking, compromise means we negotiate and we meet somewhere in the middle. But on the GRE, compromise actually means weaken. So that's one example. Another example would be like color. So color, red, blue, green, right? But on the GRE, they like to use it as a verb, and what it means is influence. So that's the same phenomenon you're seeing here with the word skirt. It looks like a relatively easy word, but the definition's actually pretty challenging. And skirt actually refers to, in the past at least, the edge of something. It's like you're going to the edge of something. You're not walking directly through. You're going to the edge of something. So what the executive is doing here is he's essentially ignoring the problems. He's not walking through them. He's walking to the side. He's sidestepping them. So the correct answer is B. Okay, what's the next one we have here? Governments are sluggish by nature. This is one of those words that you can easily attach to something in your brain to help you remember it. So the easiest example would be just to think of it as a slug. You could also think of it as a snail. You could also think of it as your grandma's PC. And then finally, what I like to think of it as is the California DMV. I don't know if you've ever had the, quote, privilege of going to the California DMV, but it is an absolute nightmare. And you have to wait in line for, minimum 2 or 3 hours, sometimes 5 or 6 hours. So if you ever have the opportunity to go to the California DMV, make sure you block out an entire day for you to do nothing but sit in a line. And I know I'm stealing this joke from Zootopia, but they were right on point with it. So the correct answer here is going to be E, slow. All right, number 10, the television show could best be described as satirical. So there is a news network in America, and I'm going to put news in quotes here because it's not really news. That's called The Onion. And The Onion is brilliant because what The Onion does is essentially present a lot of humorous, satirical news stories. And I think the best way to show this to you would be with an example, one of their more famous examples. So go ahead and take a look.
Say goodbye to the keyboard and hello to the future of laptop computers. With the MacBook wheel, Apple has replaced the traditional keyboard with a sleek, touch-sensitive click wheel. Gilman showed me how the revolutionary new computer works.
Just open the Intuitype alphabet menu here, scroll to the letter you need, see? And center click to select it. Then click again to capitalize, and repeat this process for each new letter. It couldn't be simpler.
So if it was not evident from that video, what this news network is doing is essentially making fun of Apple, kind of teasing them for their, simplicity and kind of the passionate devotion you see from their fans. So the correct answer here is going to be sarcastic. That's what's going on here. They're basically just making fun of. Another word would be like mocking. Oops, where's my pen? There we go. So another word would be like mocking. 11, I'm not going to give you any background. I'm just going to tell you the answer. Success gives rise to complacency. So somebody who is very successful, they have a tendency to not try as hard. Maybe they just kind of rest on their laurels and sit at home and enjoy the things they earned in their life. So the correct answer is going to be A, self-satisfaction. All right, number 12, we're back to the Romans. So let's take a look. So here we have the Romans. Because of his truculent personality, I suggest avoiding him. So truculent is actually a word that comes from Latin. And essentially what it means is, fierce or strong or aggressive, kind of symbolic of what you would see in the Roman military, the Roman legionnaires and those people. So the best answer here is going to be A, aggressive. Number 13, many people abhor cheese. So cheese is one of these things like liver or durian. I don't know if you guys know about durian. It's this fruit that has a kind of a spiny outside, and it's popular in Southeast Asia. And I don't like it. I think it stinks, but it's a very popular dish for some people, and they love it. To me, when you open it up, it kind of looks like mayonnaise, and it's not very appetizing, but some people just love durian. Also Vegemite, that popular spread that the Australians like to put on everything. So these kind of items, what they do is they spark love-hate relationships. And, cheese is no different, especially cheese that has, like blue cheese that might have some mold on the outside. So a lot of people just have no desire to eat any cheese. Not me. I like cheese. I think cheese is pretty good. So abhor in this case is going to mean detest, which is just a synonym for hate. The next one, the book is rather droll. Now this is a perfect example of a trap answer. And I don't think a trap answer gets much better than this. And ETS knows this because whenever we look at the word droll, what we like to think is about the word dull because they sound very similar. Droll, dull. They sound very similar. And again, ETS knows this, and they kind of exploit this fact to get some people to make a mistake. So even though they sound very similar, the meaning could not be more different. The dictionary definition. Dull, of course, means boring, listless, no life, no energy. Droll, actually, believe it or not, even though it doesn't sound like it, means humorous, funny, comedic. So again, this is a perfect trap answer and something that ETS is just very, very good at. And if you look at number 15, the same thing. What we're dealing with here with number 15 is another trap answer. Because whenever you look at the word limpid, you might be thinking weak, or you might be thinking like, for example, somebody on crutches. And we all know the most famous limp in Hollywood history.
You get no kindness from me because you're stupid, Verbal.
So this man with the limp, he's in a movie called The Usual Suspects. It's a pretty good movie from the 90s. If you haven't seen it before, I encourage you to watch it. But again, that is a trap answer. Limpid has nothing to do with this kind of on crutches or walking slowly or walking not smoothly. Believe it or not, it means clear or like transparent. So the best answer here is going to be cogent, which is just a synonym for clear. Now, the trick answer would be this one right here, right? Disjointed. Because, disjointed, maybe if someone's disjointed, it kind of sounds like maybe they have a limp or they don't walk smoothly. But yeah, the answer is going to be cogent. The next one, 16, it was a deliberate attempt to cloud the discussion. The only thing I want to mention here, because this word's pretty easy, it means A. Do you see this word cloud? The person's trying to make the discussion murky or kind of ambiguous. This has nothing to do with the word deliberate. I could put any word I want here. It was a deliberate attempt to steer the conversation. It was a deliberate attempt to end the conversation. So this word cloud, don't let it confuse you about the meaning of the word deliberate. Don't choose like dubious or failed or something like that because you have the word cloud in your brain. Just focus on the word deliberate, which means purposeful. Number 17, compared to the past, movies today are mawkish. Another one of these kind of beautiful trap answers that you often see on the GRE. Whenever people see the word mawkish, they might think of like a hawk, flying in. Or if you're in America and you're a football fan, you might think of something like the tomahawk. So this tomahawk, if, the Florida State Seminoles and the Kansas City Chiefs, you often see them kind of doing this tomahawk chop, right? So our first impression of the word mawkish might be that it is aggressive or violent or something like that. But just because the two words sound the same or sound similar do not mean they share the same meaning. In fact, the word mawkish comes from a feeling of sickness. Like in the past, if you said I was mawkish, that means that you felt sick or queasy. The way it's used nowadays is whenever you read something or see something that's very cheesy or over emotional or overly dramatic, you might feel sick to your stomach, almost like, oh, it's so cheesy I can throw up, or it's so cheesy it makes me sick. So the correct answer is going to be D, sentimental, and then the trick answer here is violent. Number 18, the journey was debilitating. We have to thank our good friends, the Romans, for this word, and I'll just break it apart. So D obviously means away or kind of an opposite negative meaning. And then you have this word or this root word bilis, which means strength. And put those two together, take away the strength. So the best answer of these five is going to be crippling. Whenever someone gets crippled, it doesn't necessarily always mean about how they walk or move. It just means that they've become unable to achieve their goals, or they've become unable to kind of move forward. So the best answer here is going to be crippling. Number 19, his methodology is too perfunctory. Whenever you see a word that's pretty complex like this one, try to connect it to something like an example. So for me, I like to think of a bed with toys. So when I was a kid, my mom would be like, Greg, clean your room, or you can't use the computer. And then for me, I didn't want to clean it properly. So what I did is I just kind of threw everything under my bed, and I cleaned the room in a perfunctory fashion. So I didn't really do it seriously. And also, if you come into our prefix here, if you remember the PER, what does that mean? It means through, right? The reason it's being used here is because I just want to get through with something very quickly. Kind of just get done with it, get through with it very quickly. So the best answer here is going to be half-hearted. I don't really give it a serious attempt. I just give it this kind of half-hearted attempt. And then finally, for number 20, this herd of animals is more fractious than usual. Look at these three words. What do they have in common? I mean, obviously they share the FRAC, but I mean in terms of meaning. So fraction, like 2/3. Fracture means like a crack in your bones. And fracking is this process where we break apart the ground in order to get oil or natural gas or whatever it is. So in each case, what we're having here is a breaking or a cracking, right? Basically, what we have is a discord or disharmony. Basically things are not working well together. We're breaking them apart. So that's where this word fractious comes in. Whenever you talk about fractious animals or fractious children, they're very difficult to control. There's a lot of discord. There's not much harmony or cooperation. So the best answer here is going to be unruly right there. Okay, we're about to wrap things up here. A couple more. So 21, V has a predilection for argument. I'm not going to give you any kind of picture for this word, but I am going to kind of break it apart for you and show you how the prefix, even though it doesn't appear to at first glance, how it can actually give information about the word. So if you look at the first prefix here, pre, I think most of us know that this means before. And you might be thinking, what the heck does before have to do with predilection? Well, the origin of this word is actually kind of interesting. If you look at this part here, that means love or something you choose to do. And then of course, means before. So it's the thing that you choose to do first, or the thing that you choose to do before everything else, the thing you choose to do when you wake up in the morning. So I'm not a huge fan of prefixes and suffixes because I think sometimes it can cloud the waters, make it a little bit murky and kind of amorphous. But, you know, just from an academic point of view and an academic standpoint, it is kind of interesting how words evolve and how they come to be. So the correct answer here is going to be fondness for. Next one. So Ju Young is seeking a chivalrous individual. And this actually has a pretty interesting history, this word. So it comes from the French word chevalier, or however they pronounce it. And what this is a knight. And their knights were kind of a paradoxical class of people. Their art was killing. That's what they were good at. That was what they were hired and kind of designed to do. But they had this other side to them, this kind of code of ethics or these moral rules that they abided by. And some of them were, you know, you have to be respectful to women. You have to be gallant. You have to be polite. You have to carry yourself like kind of a high-class citizen, not engage in anything that could be construed as rude or impolite. So the correct answer here is going to be respectful. But, you know, it's interesting, this paradox, because it's such a contradiction. You know, it's kind of like during the nighttime, the knights were very, you know, respectful and polite and treated everybody with this kind of deference. And then during the day, they would come together and just smash each other and just kill each other. So, you know, those kind of contradictions are always interesting to me. If you look at Genghis Khan, for example, that was a man of basically no contradiction. The guy was good at killing and he knew it, and then he made no qualms about it. He just kind of took what he wanted. So that's obviously horrible and he caused a lot of destruction, but there wasn't that contradiction there that you kind of see with knight culture in the Middle Ages. All right, the next one. He behaved churlishly. So this word also has kind of an interesting origin. So in the past, in England, there was something known, or someone known as a churl. And this was a peasant person, you know, kind of like the lowest class of people. And so what they did is they turned this, you know, word, churl, into an adjective, which means to behave like a peasant. And that slowly developed over time to mean to behave in a rude or unsophisticated manner. So again, very fascinating where these words come from. So the correct answer is going to be discourteously, because courteous, of course, is a synonym for polite. And then finally, Nyaup found the house quite ostentatious. Again, I probably just show you an example to show you what this means. So ostentatious is basically when you go all out. You know, you use all your money to kind of give off an impression, to be showy, or to extravagantly spend it because you want to, you know, people to see that you have wealth. And it's kind of a negative connotation. It's like you're bragging about your money. So the correct answer here is going to be showy. Okay, 25. He was precluded from hosting the event. We won't get too much into detail on this one. If you are precluded from doing something, somebody's trying to stop you. Maybe they're putting a barrier, or at least they're trying to slow you down. So the correct answer is going to be D, blocked from. Don't focus too much on this prefix, pre it's not going to help you that much. A long time ago that had some meaning, but don't worry about it here. Just know that the word preclude means to stop or prevent. 26, he exhibited obeisance, I think is the pronunciation, not sure, towards the man. This is one of those times when you can actually look at the word and kind of make a pretty good guess of what it means. If you take a look at the word obey and the word obedient, what's happening in these two words is I'm basically showing you respect, I'm following your orders, and that's kind of what this means. All three of these words are in the same vein, so the correct answer is going to be E, deference. 27, many scientists are eccentric. So for me, whenever I think about an eccentric scientist, the first one that comes to mind is probably Newton, you know, the guy from England. The second one that comes to mind is Einstein, especially with that hair. You know, that hair is just like the quintessential eccentric scientist. But actually, let's go back to Newton, because there are some facts about Newton that really highlight his eccentricity, and let's go ahead and take a look at those. Okay, so let's talk about why Newton was a pretty eccentric dude. So first of all, it is believed he died a virgin, and that's not that big of a deal, and actually that's unverifiable. You know, that's just kind of common belief about him. But what is known for sure is he never married, which back then was pretty strange. I mean, dudes back then got married. It wouldn't be that strange now, but so the guy basically spent his entire life alone and shunned people. Number 2, although famous for his contributions to science, you know, if you stop somebody on the street and you say, hey, do you know Isaac Newton? Do you know what he's famous for? Of course, they're going to say science. He wrote far more on religious matters. At times, he was so obsessed with his sinning that he couldn't even function. Like, he would hole himself up in his room and just ruminate over his sinning. And his sinning was comparatively mild. I mean, he would write down things like punching his sister or saying the wrong words, and he would just obsess over it. Number 3, he once stuck a needle in his eye to test the properties of light. I mean, that's how committed this guy was to his craft. So he basically got a needle and stuck it in his eye and kind of saw what effect it had on his perception of light. Number 4, he was a big believer in alchemy. You know, we know that alchemy now is junk science. We maybe didn't know it at the time back then, but it's pretty interesting that the arguably greatest scientist to ever walk on this earth was so consumed by something so unscientific. And then finally, the dude loved to pick fights, especially with other scientists. So he had a big fight with, you know, for example, the other founder of calculus, Leibniz, I think is his name. But that wasn't the only fight he picked. He just loved to pick fights. And so he spent the vast majority of his life lonely, sad, holed up in his room, but the world is definitely better off for it, and he certainly propelled the human race forward, arguably more than any other scientist that has lived. You know, that's definitely up for debate, but what is not up for debate is the guy was absolutely brilliant. All right, so let's go back to the other slide. Okay, now that we're back, we can finally choose an answer here for number 27. So with Newton in mind, what does eccentric mean? It means odd, strange, outside of what we consider normal. So the correct answer here is going to be D, peculiar. And then finally, let's move through these next three, 28, 29, 30, pretty quickly because this video is already too long. So Nuff relished the opportunity. The first thing to consider here is we're not talking about the first definition of relish, at least according to an American. So when an American sees relish, you know, the first thing they're going to think about is this green stuff on the hot dog. But that's not correct. Relish as a verb means to really love something. So the correct answer is E, adored. All right, let's look at the last two. So number 29, clandestine activities were afoot. You know, I just love this word, afoot. I think it's kind of funny. Clandestine activities, you know, maybe you have in your mind a spy, someone who's trying to do something secretly, someone who's trying to not get caught, someone who's trying to evade people, you know, to accomplish some kind of secret mission. So the correct answer here is going to be stealthy. And then finally, this is not the panacea you think it is. Panacea is one of those words, at least for me, that I learned when I started looking at the GRE. And a panacea basically means a cure-all. all, you know, something that is like this amazing cure that just solves the problem. So of these 5 choices, the best one is going to be D, remedy. So this was the new and improved commentary section. It was pretty long, so if you're still around, congratulations. Thanks for hanging out with me. And I will try to do this for future vocabulary quizzes. It's a little more time consuming, but I do think it's valuable to have some of the background for at least some of these words, because it can maybe aid in retention, and then hopefully we can keep the word in our brains for longer and not just forget it 5 minutes after we study it. Anyway, that's it for this video. You guys know how to reach me. gregmatt.testing@gmail.com. All right, until next time, GRE fans, hope everyone has a good day.